So something in me today told me that now is the time to kind of come out with the real true story about everything that's gone on with me. Um with all of the conversations surrounded by Matthew Perry's passing and addiction and mental health and all of that, I something in me today just realized that there's some things that we need to talk about. So I've shared a lot on my channel over the past 4 years about mental health and my struggles with anxiety and depression over my entire life. I've um, I've made some really drastic changes in my life and seemingly have overcome all of those all of those struggles, like the mental health, depression, anxiety struggles. But those struggles that I can say that I've overcame didn't come with some sacrifices. So essentially, I went broke to save my mental health. And that's just that. I feel like this needs to be talked about because there's clearly an issue in our society, in our country, with our mental health system and how we support people that are struggling. And my story has a happy ending, and I'm so grateful for the decisions that I made, but I do think that this needs to be shared, needs to be talked about, because so many people are so worried about the wrong things, and a lot of people have not made it out alive because they couldn't get help. And I wanted to share my story, like the cold, hard truth about my story and what the last 2 years have looked like for me, because it's important. It's so important because I feel like we are so scared to not be able to do all of the things that society tells us that we need to do, like have our jobs or have these nice apartments or drive these nice cars or be able to go out to eat with our friends on the weekends and party and vacation and do all of that. And all of that costs money. And 2 years ago, when couldn't even get out of bed for months at a time, my friends, literally, my friends that took care of me at that point in my life, I will forever be grateful for them. Even if I never talk to them ever again, I will just always be grateful for them, because I was struggling. 2 years ago, I was every other day like looking up suicide hotline numbers, calling outpatient programs just for them to tell me that it was going to cost me at least, at minimum, $4,000 to check myself into like an 8-week outpatient program. And my psychiatrist at the time was telling me that, all they're going to do is pump you full a whole bunch of medication. She knew and also was on board that I am a pretty holistic person and did not want to be on medication, even though at the time I was on 3 different medications because I was at like the bottom of the bottom. But my psychiatrist at the time was telling me like those programs are just going to pump you full of medication. But she also was saying you're in danger of yourself and you need to do something. And I was reaching out to family, friends, telling them that I was suicidal, but no one really knew what to do with me or for me. Someone in my life even was like, "We just call the suicide hotline number." And that was just like, that I just felt like at the bottom of the bottom, because I'm like, I need help. But at that time, I couldn't afford to go to an outpatient program at all. I had just separated from my business partner. The biggest client that I had ever had, and that I was working for 6 months, that I was depending on that income from him, fired me to go work with my ex-business partner. And I was broke. I didn't have any money. I was depending on my business to take off with my business partner, and I was depending on that huge client that I had to all work out. And none of that stuff worked out in the midst of me finding out I was losing my vision, in the midst of me also being completely heartbroken from a person that I, had spent a lot of time getting to know. And everything in my life was crumbling at one time, not just like my physical, my work stuff, my love life, but also my finances. Everything was crumbling at one time, and I did not know what to do. And I had a couple of options, which was to keep grinding, keep doing all of that. But to be honest, I would be driving down the road and I was having very bad thoughts while driving down the road. And I didn't even feel safe to drive in a car. In real estate, you have to be able to drive in order to make money. So basically, I was just at my apartment and really I couldn't even figure out how to get out of a box. I really didn't know what to do at all. No one knew what to do with me. And something in me told me that I just needed a break and I needed to get out of town. So that's what I did. Most of you guys saw my parading around Thailand for 3 months, and I had a lot of people that were making comments, especially like in the blind, low vision community, saying that I was so lucky that I had the finances to be able to do that. And the truth is I went to Thailand with little to no money in my bank account, with purchasing my flight on a credit card, and I just went to Thailand. I said, screw it. I did not care what really happened because I knew that I wasn't even going to be able to see the next day if I didn't get some help. And so I just made a decision to pack up everything in my life and basically quit my job. I mean, I stopped working and just go out of town. And when I got to Thailand, I realized that that was the best decision that I could have ever made. There was no way I was going to be able to keep functioning and be able to get myself out of the hole that I was in emotionally if I was not given a break. And I wasn't going to be able to get a break if I would have stayed in the States, because I still would have had bills. I still would have had all these responsibilities, but everything all just lined up for the fact that I sold my car, packed up all my belongings, so I didn't have an apartment anymore, and I just went out of the country. And as a lot of you guys know, while I was out of the country, I ended up meeting some people that were going to help me with my vision. I did a fundraiser for that. People so graciously donated money to me in order for me to work with these healers. And I came back from Thailand, lived in an RV for 4 months, not only because I didn't have any money and I was not planning on going back to work anytime soon because I wanted to focus on my health, but also because I needed to live in isolation really to focus on getting better. And I just wanted to share my story because I feel over the years of all the different friends I've had or people that I've seen so many people struggle with mental health. And I personally made a decision that I haven't really seen many other people do, or maybe they just haven't shared it because that's a huge thing that people, maybe are ashamed to talk about money and talk about the fact that I made a huge sacrifice to say, screw my finances, I'm going to save my mental health. I said, I don't care if I'm going to go broke. I need a break and I'm not going to work anymore. And that's what I did. And I knew some way, somehow things were going to work out. And I'm not going to say that I didn't cry so many times. I wasn't so worried about what I was going to do for money, but I knew that I needed a break. And watching all this stuff with Matthew Perry and people talk about like mental health and just different struggles that people have had, it just got me thinking about the time that I was so low and I was calling mental health institutes and I couldn't even afford to go there. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I was so suicidal. And I think about too, like all of the teenagers, like even me as a teenager struggled with mental health. And it's a huge financial burden for families to have their kids in therapy or going to psychiatrists, or like my mom was doing. She was sending me to all of these different alternative medicine type company or type healers or doctors, and that stuff's not covered on insurance, so that stuff's expensive. And my mom was doing everything she could do to help me for my mental health, and that stuff is expensive. And I personally have watched close friends and peers end up in jail, end up losing everything. I've seen people become alcoholics. I've seen people turn to selling their bodies because they thought money was going to help them mentally. I've seen people do everything under the sun to help their mental, or what they think is going to help and solve their mental health problems. I've seen everybody do all of these crazy things because most people don't know where to start, or it's not socially acceptable to say, hey, I need a break. I am just going to take a hiatus and hope for the best and screw everything else. Most people can't do that because they're worried about things that are justifiably like things that you should worry about as far as like how you're going to survive and your responsibilities and stuff. But I just wanted to get on and like share my story of the fact that I chose my mental health and saving my life over everything, over losing all of like my belongings, over my finances, over everything. I chose my mental health because I knew that none of this other stuff mattered if I wasn't here. And now that I'm on track to get my life back, I can say that it was absolutely the best decision that I ever made, was to say, screw your responsibilities, screw the fact that you don't really have money to do this, and just follow your heart. And your heart is telling you that you need a break. And that's what I gave myself. And that's what saved my life. So I really just feel so passionate about talking about mental health because I have been there. And I've talked a lot about how just the different practices I've learned over the past 2 years have totally saved my life. Like, I'm so grateful that I went to Thailand and that I met the people that I met, went to the different retreats that I went to, adopted all of these different practices that I have, because it's just totally changed my life. I absolutely believe that there are those of us that struggle more than others with our mental health. And now I'm fully a believer that it's not some sort of like chemical imbalance that like people tell us that it is. It's not that we're broken. It's just maybe we don't have the tools to deal with what we need to deal with. Maybe we don't have control over our minds. Maybe our bodies are not working the way that they're supposed to, which is where that chemical imbalance phrase may come from. But I'm here to tell you that it's not a permanent chemical imbalance. You can heal yourself. I am just here to say that I feel like my sacrifice of saying whatever to all of my responsibilities, my finances, like my job, my home, like everything, I feel like my journey to sacrifice all of that in order to learn everything that I've learned, I feel like it is my true passion and mission to help other people with their journey of their mental health and in their journey to heal themselves, whether it be physically or mentally, because not everybody is as trusting as I was at that point, which was to just say screw everything and just hope for the best. Like, not everyone is going to do that. Not everyone is at a place in their life where they can let go of the programming and the conditioning that we're put that we have because of like what we think all of these things we need to accomplish and do. Not everybody can do that or is there yet. And I really feel like there's a huge problem with our mental health services, and I want to help. I want to do what I can do to help others because, as I mentioned, not all of us will take the leap of faith and travel across the world with no money. Not all of us have the money or even know where to begin as far as like going to therapists or psychiatrists or going to different energy healers. Like, not all of us even, like, a lot of us are not even in a mental headspace to even figure out some of that stuff. That's 100% where I was 2 years ago. I even had a friend that was like, hey, I know that you are not even in a place to do research about therapists. Let me do research for therapists for you. Like, I know that there's people out there that are so far in a hole mentally that they cannot even think straight. And that's where I was. And I just am here to say that sometimes you have to think outside the box. Sometimes you have to make huge sacrifices in order to save yourself. And I wanted to share my story because I think it's about time to be real and say everything is not always magic, and everything isn't, or not that it's not always magic. It is always magic, but it doesn't always feel like it. Everything isn't always just beautiful, and people, there's different things that people make decisions to do in order to get to where they're going. And a part of my journey was basically going completely broke to save my life. And it was the best decision that I ever made. And as I am getting my life back in order, I'm here to say that I don't regret that at all. I wish more people would say, screw everything and just do what your heart is telling you to do. If your heart is telling you you need a 6-month break from responsibilities, go live as a monk. Go do a workaway program where you can, where they give you free housing and food in exchange for work. I mean, there are so many ways that you can take a mental health break, and I am just here to support you guys and say that's what I did, and it saved me. And also, for those of you that are not in a place to make that decision to take a mental health break, I'm here to serve others too. From all of the heavy, deep inner work that I've done and that I've learned throughout the past 2 years, I know some way, somehow, this was my mission, was to be able to go to that journey to come back to serve others. So I just wanted to say that please put yourself first and stop worrying about what the outcome is going to be 6 months from now, a year from now. Because if you're not here, if you can't get your mental headspace together, number one, you may not be here in 6 months or a year. Or number two, you could just continue living your life as a zombie and being totally unhappy, totally just kind of managing your mind frame. And that's not the way that we were designed to live. We were designed to be full of life and vibrant. And yes, we're going to have ups and downs. And yes, things are not always beautiful, but we are not put on this earth to just be continuously just kind of getting by. We're supposed to be on this earth to be enjoying and to be contributing and to serving others and to be a member of our communities. And we can't do that if we can't even take care of our own like mental headspace. So I just wanted to share my story. I went broke in order to save my mental health, and it was the best decision I have ever made. And it was the best money I have ever spent. And I would do it 3 times again because I can make all of the money for the rest of my life. Money will come and money will go. And I know And I knew at the time money was going to come back in, and it has. And I knew that the most important thing for me was to take a break. So if you're needing a break, if you're needing services, if you're needing suggestions with trying to manage where you're at mentally, please reach out to me. Please reach out to somebody. There are ways that you can help where you're at and it costs little to no money. Or there are ways that you can spend money in a very creative way in order to get where you need to go, which is maybe taking a break. So hope this finds you guys well. I'm going to keep sharing my journey.